Wholesalers, it's Rob Shore at Wholesaler Masterminds, and you may be thinking to yourself, Rob, you're thinking, what do you have besides this amazing podcast? And I'm so glad you asked. Wholesaler Masterminds has an assortment of product and services all designed around the art, science, and lifestyle of wholesaling. As an example, we have coaching services designed to help you power wash your practice, whether you have 2 years or 22 years. We'll offer you speaking live engagements at divisional or national sales meetings. Our scheduling service has dedicated professionals trained in the art of getting you more appointments, Wholesaler Mastermind schedulers. Our Speakers Bureau brings you amazing speakers and processes to get better return on investment out of those speakers. And finally, our newest partnership with Allego. If you have Allego and want to get the Wholesaler Masterminds channel on your Allego platform, please let us know. Wholesaler Masterminds, happy to bring you this podcast and so much more. Wholesaler Masterminds, the art, science, and lifestyle of wholesaling. How many times on our show have we talked about PVP-Peerless Value Proposition? How many times have we thought about, what are you going to do to establish the brand of you that stands proudly next to the brand that you promote as a wholesaler? And today we're going to talk about one of those opportunities to build your Peerless Value Proposition. We're going to discuss it with an expert who's been working with financial advisors for darn near almost 20 years. I think you'll enjoy our show. We'll be right back. Welcome to the only podcast on the planet dedicated to exploring the art, science, and lifestyle of wholesalers and their leaders. This is the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show. I'm your host, the founder of Wholesaler Masterminds, Rob Shore. Wholesalers, welcome back to the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show. Our guest today is a sought-after expert on branding for financial services. In fact, he's the brand guy at Top Advisor Marketing. Kirk Lowe has dedicated 15 plus years to demystifying and simplifying financial marketing. He regularly shares his insights and advice on his podcast, Top Advisor Marketing, and offers DIY marketing resources and courses at AdvisorU. We're going to pick his brain today about referrals, or more appropriately, death by referrals. Kirk Lowe, welcome to the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show.
Thanks, Rob. I love the intro. You're a pro, man.
Well, that's very, very kind of you. Let's get into this whole death by referrals. But before we do, tell us a little bit about you. I mean, obviously, I've read the formal bio, but it's just a couple of sentences that speak to who you are. So just riff for a minute. Just riff for a minute. Tell us, what are you doing from up there in the Canadian hinterlands helping advisors?
I've been doing this for 17 plus years. And when I started, I left the advisory practice world. I was in a marketing capacity and becoming an advisor. And just left because I want to control my own fate. We've all been there, lots of us anyway. And I started building websites. That's what I thought everybody needed. That was back in 2000. And I quickly realized that, man, a website without a brand is like a human without a soul. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And then if you start spending a bunch of money trying to bring in opportunities, fill your pipeline, so to speak, and you don't have a message or a story to tell them how different you are, or to help people experience what it is like working with you, or who you work with, or who you get, everything just kind of fails. It may be a slow death, but it just doesn't work the way it could. And I think a lot of advisors over the years can probably relate to that. And there's a certain point where advisors just realize, you know what, I don't really know who I am. I don't know what my story is. I don't sound any different or any better than anybody else. And that is really what my company is all about.
That's awesome.
And that's why I call myself the brand guy. And we only work with financial advisors for that entire period of time.
So we get to pick your brain today from a couple of different perspectives. We get to understand through you what's going inside of the brain, what's going on inside of the brain of the financial advisor. And then maybe we get to use some of your time-tested expertise to help wholesalers brand themselves. So there's a few different lenses, wholesalers, that I'd like you to look through as you evaluate the information that Kirk Lowe brings us today. But specifically what keyed me in to speak to Kirk and invite him on the podcast was a white paper that he wrote called Death by Referrals. And I thought that would be a really excellent topic for us to work through today. What are the challenges that wholesalers, well, advisors and potentially wholesalers face when it comes to capturing referrals? And what sort of remedies does Kirk see as being attractive in getting more referrals into the pipeline? So the title of the document is Death by Referrals. We'll link it up in the show notes as well as on the website. But tell us more about the origin of death by referrals, and then we'll start to pick through the 5 ways to die, as you call them, Kirk.
The origins, very interesting question. I mean, a lot of advisors talk about what I call the lifeblood of a practice, and that is referrals. Winning by referrals is what every advisor wants to do. Yet I see so many advisors struggle. I mean, how many times has a wholesaler spoken to an advisor, and the advisor says, "Oh yeah, I'm good with referrals. I'm getting exactly how many I deserve, how many I want, and the perfect kind of people." I don't know, to be honest, if I've heard that in my 17 years.
Yeah.
So the idea here is, what is wrong with referrals? And I've broken it down what I believe, the experience I've had. There's, I'm surely more, but these are the instances where I see advisors killing their practices, and it would be the same thing with the wholesalers. I mean, most of what I'm talking about here to advisors, directly to advisors, should apply to wholesalers, to their own businesses and to the relationships that they have. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does. And let's unpack this a little bit then. So you have 5 explicit ways that you speak of in which to die in terms of referrals. One is too many referrals, and that starts out to hit me as an oxymoron. Who gets too many referrals? And shouldn't I just be lucky if I'm to be blessed with so many referrals as to call them too many?
Yeah, it definitely sounds like an oxymoron. I've seen this kill a number of advisors, and it's not an out there, philosophy, an outlier. It's not an outlier. I see it fairly frequently, and there's different extents to it. But I'll give you one example.
Yep.
This guy named Michael S. calls me, and he says he's been in the business for 30 years. He's got about 350 clients. The average is 10 referrals a month. And I'm thinking to myself, man, why are you talking to me? That sounds great. I know it's
good start. Yeah.
Yeah. I said, well, I got a junior advisor. Oh, as soon as he said that, I started thinking, okay. And he says, and 9 out of the 10 go to the junior advisor because they're just not good referrals. I think, well, then they're not really referrals. I mean, and so what's happening here is this guy has been around for 30 years, unfortunately, spending most of his time teaching the junior how to manage and build a business with 9 non-ideal referrals. That is consuming a lot of this advisor's time. It's keeping them busy and keeping them from doing what they ought to be doing, which is finding perfect people to fit into their practice, not their junior advisor's practice. So that's an incredible. So that's the focus there is a big problem. But just having too many people that aren't right and having to sift through those people or hand them off, that's a major problem in a business because it takes away your focus. You're working with people. And here's a really, really interesting thing. This is probably one of my favorite point of views as far as the value that a brand creates. When you are really focused and dialed in on an audience, and you know what your greatest expertise is, you can create value that other advisors cannot compete with because you are so dialed in. They cannot compete with you. So you get a competitive advantage when you focus because your content, you're so dialed into your audience, you can create value that other people can't compete with. It's an incredible ROI that nobody ever figures they can measure, so they don't think about it or talk about it or ask about it, unfortunately. So if you've got too many non-ideal referrals coming in, that's just too much work to either qualify them or to hand them off to a junior, and it will absolutely kill your practice.
Now, number 2, and wholesalers, you're probably ahead of the game on this. Number 2 would be too few referrals. And is it fair to say that the vast majority of advisors are sitting in a place of too few versus too many? Because I can't help but get away, Kirk, from the notion of, too many, it's a nice problem to have. But too few, that's just flat out a problem.
Yeah, there's definitely more that struggling with death number 2 here, which is too few. And I don't know what the perspective is or what the thinking is around it. Maybe this will change. I just need to ask more. But it's a big problem if you can't figure out how to inspire more referrals. And I use the word inspire because I don't, earn is another good one. You have to earn and inspire. Just expecting, I think there's an expectation that, hey, I work with so-and-so and I've done a decent job for them. Where are the referrals? And then the next question is, okay, I just need to ask better. And everybody's searching for the perfect script, the perfect mechanism, opportunity, event, milestone. When do I ask? Oh, yeah, always ask after your first meeting. After you present the plan, that's when you got to ask. Or you got to ask this way, or you got to ask that way. You got to take them for dinner. You got to do this. You got to get a guest to come. The truth is there's no good way to beg for business. And it's very difficult for advisors to feel comfortable for it. The best way to do it is to earn it and inspire them so that you never have to have that conversation. You feel great, they feel great, but it's a whole different mindset shift to get there. And we'll talk about that a little bit later.
Okay. So number 1 is too many referrals. Number 2 is too few referrals. Number 3 is no ideal prospects.
Yeah. So, I mean, these are all interrelated, obviously, but if you can't figure out who you want to be referred to, it's going to be very difficult for your clients to figure that out. So a lot of times it's just, if I don't have the right people coming into my business, I can never truly get ahead. What's my focus? How can I build value if I'm serving everybody? So, this idea of being a financial generalist, if you're really great at being a generalist, that can become your specialty. I know that sounds crazy, but it can be true. If you can learn to outsource parts of the financial planning process to experts and you be the hub, the quarterback, whatever you want to call it. But if you can't you can identify and help your people identify who you want to work with, and you're not getting any ideals in. So let's say you get better, but you're just getting non-ideals in, you haven't solved the problem. You're going to die too. So you got to figure out, it's not just about getting people in the door. It's about getting the right people in the door and start there. Don't think about, hey, well, I just got to get the funnel started. No. You have to get the right people right now. Nothing else will do.
Wholesalers, out on the website, if you look up preferred advisor profile, one of the things that you'll find there are some of the attributes of financial advisors you should be thinking about. And whether this has to do with referrals, which of course is the topic of today's conversation, or just has to do with how you build your book of financial advisors, or how you trim and prune your book of financial advisors. You want to do it with an eye towards those advisors that possess the kinds of traits and attributes that you tend to gravitate to, get along best with, derive the most business from. And so just in the same way that Kirk is talking about, how do you help an advisor, how does an advisor help, say, through Kirk, figure out what their ideal prospect is, hence to be able to get more referrals. You too should be focusing on what preferred advisor profile looks like for you, because not all advisors are good advisors to our practice, just like not all public customers are great customers to the advisor. The fourth one on your list here is too much asking for referrals. Shouldn't we be asking? Shouldn't we always be asking?
I've never found an advisor who is truly comfortable asking. I've never found a way that I would consider to be an effective ask that doesn't sound needy or like you're putting the onus of growing their business on that person. And it's a little different if you're asking a center of influence, because you can have a conversation. But if you're asking from a client over and over again for people, it's you're putting the onus on them. It's not a comfortable thing. The opposite of that is earning them, and that kind of gets into a little bit about death number 5. But if you can earn it and you can inspire it, you don't have to ask. I do know people I do not ask for referrals in my business. They come because we earn it. Unless I'm talking to a center of influence. And even then I can inspire it. I can invite somebody on my podcast, do a great show, professionally produce it, get them to put it out into their network. That, in a way, is asking for referrals because they're introducing me to their network, right? And obviously, if they're on my show, they're advocating for us to a degree. So there are less obvious ways to inspire and or ask for referrals. But a direct ask, unless you've got just incredible charisma and you can pull it off, I find that most of the advisors I've ever worked with have struggled at it, felt completely uncomfortable with it, and they know their clients are really uncomfortable.
I want to share an idea, Kirk, and maybe you would find that it either doesn't work in your system or it doesn't work with financial advisors. But wholesalers, you may have heard me share this idea before, but I'm going to share it again right here in case you haven't heard it, because I know this works and I know it works for my clients, the clients of Wholesaler Masterminds. And that is the creation of a most wanted list. See, what happens when you create a most wanted list is that this target of people you want to be referred to is extraordinarily small. It may not be more than 3, 5, 7 people. And it's by geography and it's by broker-dealer. So when I'm sitting in front of Kirk, who is a loyal producer of Funman funds and has always been the kind of advisor that I like to serve, if I walk into Kirk's office and I say, Kirk, I got to ask you a favor. I've got a list of 5 people that work in your OSJ. And those 5 people are people I've been trying to meet. Is there an opportunity for you to afford an introduction to any of these 5 people if I show you who they are? And that, Kirk, I know works because it's not the open-ended who do you know who. To your point about putting the onus on the customer or to have to decide, gee, who should I refer, who shouldn't I refer? How do I sift the whole universe of possibilities for him? No, you have to do that. It's simply a matter of saying, I've got 5 names. Here is why I've selected them. They represent the kind of advisor that I think makes sense for my practice. And I suspect you may know one of them or 2 of them on this list of 5 or 7. May I show it to you? What are your thoughts on
that? So timely. I was at a conference on Friday, and it was a conference with, I don't want to get into who it was because I kind of slammed it in my last podcast without naming anybody, just to be nice. But there was one takeaway that I really thought was positive. There was a lot of other stuff that was really old marketing and irresponsible to shout it to the masses through this organization. But anyhow, this one thing I liked was where it was regarding the guy who was doing a lot of business through 401ks. And I should have, when you talk about a wholesaler going after asking for, it's a little different than a client because a client, it's B2C, and B2B is a little easier. Mm-hmm. It's easier for me to ask. It's easier for a wholesaler to ask. In my opinion, it's more complicated when you're asking a consumer to help you grow your business. Mm-hmm. Anyhow, but what this person was doing with 401ks is when the client was coming there, they had a list of, I think, 5 or 6 different things. Who are your biggest competitors? And what they would do is they would create this most wanted list. Now, they were asking their client to create it, which wasn't as good a scenario, but I think if you can create one for them and you can ask them, I think that is actually good. I like that. So bang on there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Let's go to number 5, not being referable. And as you said, this is intertwined with how you're going to amaze clients such that they just want to refer you. But what are the other pitfalls under not being referable?
I think if most advisors, grab the mirror and look at it and figure out the people that you want to work with, are you really any different or any better? Do you add any more value to their world than the next person down the street? And if you can't answer that quickly and decisively, you've got to fix that. If you're not referable, it's not going to happen. And if it does happen, if you do get referred and you're not worth it, somebody's going to be upset about being asked to do that. You put them in that position. And I think too many advisors aren't referable enough. I think it was too easy. And for wholesalers, I'm sure it's the same thing. Sometimes it's too easy in this industry. It's easier to be successful to a certain degree because a lot of people need help and there's not enough financial advice. Could be the same thing. Well, I don't know if it's the same for wholesalers, but you can fill me in. But you got to work on being referral to the point where you have so much value that it's an absolute no-brainer. And we're going to talk a little bit about why that's so important and how you inspire them. But I mean, that's got to be the first thing you tackle. So forget about how you're even going to figure out how to, you've got to, how can I add so much value that I've earned the referral in my practice with everybody I work with.
So let's use that as a turning point. We've got about 6 minutes left. Let's use that as a turning point. Tell us about, we've got the problem, right? We have too many referrals. We have not enough referrals. We have not enough ideal prospects. We have too much asking for referrals. We have not being referable enough. Based upon that work that you do at your firm, give me some insights. How am I supposed to improve or get better in these things that might kill me when it comes to death by referrals?
I look at referrals as why people refer. There's two reasons why people refer. And I won't get into the psychology of it, but it's called the attribution theory. And basically people will refer if they feel like they're being helpful. But they don't want they won't truly feel if they're being helpful unless you make them look good when they refer you. So you got to accomplish those two things to get their referral. People typically want to be helpful, most people. So if they're helpful, if they feel like they're being helpful and you make them look good in doing so, then you've got a chance of that happen. Here's the thing though. I'm going to talk about the story of Mick. Mick is MIC, stands for my ideal client, whether that's my ideal advisor or my ideal client. There are three reasons why your ideal client or center of influence or advisor won't refer you to other people. And that is because Mick does not know who to refer to. Who is your ideal client? If you don't understand who they are, then it's very difficult for them to refer you to the right people. And they feel uncomfortable because they don't know. Maybe I'm wasting so-and-so's time.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not right. Maybe when they're not right, it's going to embarrass me because my friends will be, why did you waste my time? Right? The second thing, Mick doesn't know how to refer you. They don't know what to say. If they feel in their heart of hearts that you are indeed different, but they can't articulate that, and that they understand that referral opportunity, that introduction is likely to die before anything ever comes from it. So if I say my financial advisor or my wholesaler has a ton of, I really trust them. They help me. They have comprehensive help. They help me in a lot of different areas. They have a lot of integrity. They always put my interests before theirs. Everybody says that. So if you say that, if that's how they introduce, and that's how most people would introduce their financial advisor, might be the same way they introduce a wholesaler, you haven't differentiated yourself. So why would that person follow through with that lead? It's not going to happen. If they don't know how to refer you, how to differentiate you, how to set you up, it's not going to happen. So the first one, again, they don't know who to refer to, and if they don't know how. The third one is they don't know where. So if you just say, give them a call, what are the chances that's going to happen?
Right.
How about this? I'm going to send you a link to their white paper. I'm going to send you to their podcast. Actually, if you go to iTunes, you type in, right, Top Advisor Marketing, you'll get Kirk's podcast. You get to listen to him muse about financial marketing. And then it's up to me to make it happen. So if you can tell them where to refer to, give them a call to action. The simpler that call to action it is, the more likely it is that they'll jump into the pipeline. It's not always going to work out that it's going to be somebody's, so-and-so referred you, let's sit for a meeting. I'll bring all my paperwork. I'll bring all my financial documents, or the advisor's just, ready to go for lunch with a wholesaler because so-and-so said so. You got to figure that all out, but you need to know who to refer to. They need to know who. They need to know how. They need to know where. When they know these three things, you can inspire them to start referring more.
And sitting in front of that, if I piece this all together correctly, Kirk, sitting in front of that is the amazing job that you do that sort of, if you will, self-compels the person doing the referring to want to refer to you because they've just been simply stunned, amazed, and otherwise taken aback by your brilliance. Is that a fair assessment of that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I call it building referral momentum. And there's three ways to accomplish that. One is you got to start building a story that intrigues people. So do you sound different and better? You got to figure that out, because if you don't, you might not ever inspire that or initiate the referral, and you're definitely not going to go very far with it. Mm-hmm. Second one is you need to create content and resources that prove your brand and engage people. What can you do and give to somebody that they can give to somebody that says, hey, I'm an expert, and I know your problems and your challenges, and I'll help you overcome them. That's the second thing. The third thing is you have to share that content. You have to give it away. You cannot keep that close to your chest. You've got to give it away, start to influence them, and then try to attract people. Get people to like it, get people to share it, and then start to attract more and more people to your circle. And that's how you build referral momentum. It's quite possible at that point you might be able to ask a little bit more, because now you've got educational stuff to share with them. That's an easier ask than, hey, can you just give me their name and number? I want to call them.
Yeah.
Hope that makes sense.
It does. Wholesalers, Death by Referrals. Check it out in the show notes. We'll link it up for you. The podcast that Kirk and his partner, Matt Halloran, have on a... How often does it come out? Weekly?
Usually about 2 to 3 a month.
2 to 3 a month. Is Top Advisor Marketing. You can find that at iTunes. Is that a safe statement?
Absolutely.
Kirk Lowe, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Rob.
Wholesalers, come back next time for another episode of the new Wholesaler Masterminds radio show. You'll find all of our content at wholesalermasterminds.com, and the podcast can be found at iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play.